Welcome to Lesson 12 in Somatic Movement Patterns, Hip and Shoulders, Part 2. In Part 1, we learned how to roll the shoulders in a somatic manner. In Part 2, we're going to be doing the counterpart with the hips. So let me ask that you first lie down flat on your back. Take just a brief moment. Close your eyes and take stock of yourself. And in particular, bring your attention to the area of your waist and lower back. And just make note of how your waist and lower back area feels so that we can come back and compare once we've completed our movement pattern. Now, I'm going to ask everybody to roll over onto your left side. You can pillow your head comfortably on your arm or use another pillow. And bring the legs up. Be sure to put them at about a 90-degree or perpendicular angle to the torso here. Rest your right arm comfortably across the hip and bring your attention to the right hip. And I want to ask you to bring that right hip up closer. Pull the hip up, hike it up towards the right armpit, and then relax it. And do that again. Hike that hip up and release it. As you hike that hip up, you'll notice two things. One is there's a tightening or contraction of muscles in the right flank, but there's a corresponding lengthening of the left flank and left rib cage. And relax. Do that again. Hip hikes up and relax. Now, this time we'll do just the opposite. Instead of drawing the hip towards the armpit, let's let the hip move down away and release. And move that hip down and release. And notice how the range of motion compares. Moving the hip down and then move the hip up. Release, move the hip down and move the hip up. We'll do that one more time. Hip goes down, hip comes up. Now, let's bring the hip forward. As the hip comes forward, you can just let the right leg slide across the left leg. And relax. And push the hip forward and relax. Push it forward. Notice how much motion you've got with that hip coming forward. And then move the hip back. And relax. And back. And pull the hip back again. Now this time let's move that hip all the way forward and all the way back. All the way forward and all the way back. And notice how much motion you've got with that. Now we'll compare that. Bring the hip up and push the hip down. Up and down. Forward and back. And relax. Now let's have you hike the hip up. And from this position, push the hip forward. And then move your hip down and pull your hip back. Now the hip is a ball and socket joint and it's perfectly designed for circular movements such as we're doing now. Go ahead, bring that hip up again. Move it forward. Push it down. Pull it back. Up. Forward. Down. And back. Up, forward, down, and back. And around. And pause when you bring the hip up. Now we're going to reverse our direction. Move your hip back. Move your hip down. Push it forward. Draw it up. Pull it back. Push it down. Push it forward, pull it up. Try and make your movement smooth throughout. Now, if you have any sticking points with the hip, just as with the shoulder, I want you to respect those. Don't force your way through them. Just work around them as best you can. And around, and around, and around. Now bring yourself back to neutral and just rest for a moment. And I'm going to ask you to roll onto your back. Close your eyes for just a moment and turn the focus of your attention down to the waist and hip areas. And see if you can notice how your right side, the side that we just worked with, compares to the left side. You may notice that the right side of the lower back and the buttock area are noticeably flatter against the floor as compared to the left. Now, if you're practicing at home, you can simply roll to the other side, right, so that the camera has the best vantage of me. I'm going to flip myself around here. This way you'll be able to follow more clearly. So we're now rolled onto our right side. Knees tucked up to a 90-degree angle. Bring your attention to your left hip and draw the left hip up in the direction of the left armpit. And relax. And up and down. Hip comes up, hip releases. Hip comes up, feel the muscles in the left flank contracting, and then relax. Now this time we'll move the left hip down, so push the hip down, and relax. Now as you push that left hip down, you'll notice it's the muscles on the underside of the body that are contracting in order that the muscles along the left flank can relax and lengthen. And push the hip down and relax. And down and relax. And one more time, push down and release. Now this time, let's take the left hip and we're going to bring it forward, letting the left leg simply slide across the right leg and come back. Hip goes forward, hip comes back. Forward and back. Forward and back. Now this time let's retract the left hip, pull it back, and relax. Pull it back, and relax. As you pull the hip back, notice where in your body you're making an effort. What muscles are working to make that action happen? And relax. Go all the way forward, and go all the way back. All the way forward, and all the way back. And pause. Now at this point, let's bring the left hip up, and from up, move the hip forward. From forward, slowly move the hip down, and just as slowly pull it back. Bring it up, move it forward, push it down, and pull it back. Up, forward, down, and back. Around in a nice, slow, smooth, and deliberate circle. And now pause at the top, and let's reverse our direction. Pull your hip back, move it down, push it forward, pull it up. Pull it back, push it down, push it forward, pull it up, around and around in a nice, smooth circle. And when you practice on your own, you can organize the size of the circle according to your ability and your personal preferences. For example, you might try small circles, graduating to medium circles, and eventually, as your body allows, moving into a larger and larger circling action. Now let's go up and back and down and forward and up and back and down and forward. And now just come back to neutral. And let's have you roll onto your back. Close your eyes, turn the focus of your attention in, and notice how the right and left sides of your waist and lower back compare with each other now. This completes part 2 of hip and shoulder rolls. Thank you.